We have another leak. This time it's for the Boston Bruins. So the CBC did an article talking about how the tariffs could end the Made in Canada NHL jerseys. Now, I'm not going to talk about the tariffs in this video right here. It's possible I might do a video about it in the future, but of course, with the tariffs, one day they're there, and then they get delayed, and then the date that they get delayed to, they get completely taken off, and then they get put back on again, and then they get taken off in the same day. It's dumb. So not going to talk about that today, but for the CBC article, they were of course talking to SP Apparel, who is the factory that actually has been making all of the Made in Canada jerseys since I think it's like 1975. They've been doing it for a very long time. So they had a video and they were shooting some B-roll, and in that B-roll you could see a brand new jersey for the Boston Bruins. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. Of course, before we do so, if you guys are new to the channel and you like hockey jersey content, please make sure to subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. All right, let's get into it. So here it is. This is the new jersey that the Boston Bruins will be wearing next season. Now, if you're looking at this thing and going, what do you mean? That's not a new jersey. That's their Centennial Game jersey that they wore earlier this season. I can definitely understand that because honestly, I wouldn't have noticed the differences if someone didn't point this out to me. If other people weren't pointing it out, I totally would have just looked at this thing and went, yeah, that's the Centennial Game jersey. I guess they're using it again as an alternate. Not really quite too sure. But if you look closely at the sleeves there, you can see that the yellow doesn't go all the way down to the cuff. It goes back to black, which is not how it was on that Centennial jersey. So a very, very small minor difference there. And if we go to our next picture, we can see a little bit of a brand new shoulder patch. Now, this shoulder patch doesn't really feel too new because it is just the bear that is usually on their shoulder patches, and it was on the Centennial patch right there. So that guy, it's just blown up and it's only the bear itself, and then it just says Bruins right in the middle of it. So this jersey does bear a lot of resemblance to the Centennial Game jersey, like I said, that the Bruins wore earlier this year. It seems very, very similar to it, with just, the two aspects that I mentioned right there being the difference. Since we don't have a full look at these jerseys just being laid out, I do want to take a look at some concepts here. These were done by Chris Wilson. He's a great designer. I'll leave a link to his Instagram in the description down below, and I appreciate him sending these my way. So this is his concept based on everything that we've seen, and it's basically what we're going to have. Now, of course, if you do look up top, there is only one shoulder patch, and that is based off of these leaks as well. There was another picture floating around. I can't seem to find it right now, but it did show that there was only a shoulder patch on one of the shoulders, not on the other one. So, I guess it's maybe slightly possible they just didn't, put the shoulder patch on the other shoulders for those jerseys at that point, but it would be kind of strange for them to do that. You'd think that they would do both of them at the exact same time. So it does appear to be like they're only going to have the shoulder patch on one of the shoulders, and I'm really disappointed in that. I actually really hate when teams do that. The Bruins did it with this jersey right here, and I still wasn't a huge fan of it, but I could kind of understand it a little bit because it's an anniversary patch. It's not necessarily a secondary logo. With these ones, it is a secondary logo, so I'm not quite too sure why it would only be on one shoulder. I hope that by the time that these jerseys actually release, that they do change that and it's on both shoulders, because if this is how it looks, it's going to be slightly disappointing. As for the rest of the jersey, it is a nice looking jersey. It does kind of pay homage to those 70s and 80s jerseys. It's very, very similar to those jerseys, I will say, and which is not necessarily a bad thing because those were very nice looking jerseys. And yeah, this one is a nice looking jersey. Now, the issue that I kind of have with it is that apparently, from the rumors that I've seen, this is not going to be their Stadium Series jersey, which makes sense. Like I said, it's kind of a homage to those older school jerseys, and the Stadium Series games are supposed to be futuristic, so that wouldn't make sense there. Apparently, it's not supposed to be an alternate jersey. It's going to be the brand new home jersey for the Boston Bruins, which means that they will also be getting an away jersey. So I do have a concept here that we'll look at in just a little bit for the away jersey as well. But my thoughts on the Boston Bruins going to this as a home jersey, I'm kind of conflicted because I do like their current home jersey right now that they've switched back to after a year of using these Centennial jerseys. I think it is one of the nicest home jerseys in the league. I think I had that in my top 10 when I did the ranking of the home jerseys. I was going to say earlier this year, but it was, before the season started. I did that video, and I'm pretty sure it was in the top 10. It's a very nice looking jersey. The slight issue that I have with it is they've been wearing it for quite a while, right? They've had it since, I believe it was 2007 is when they started wearing that jersey. Now, in terms of an original six team, that's really not that long of a time. But for myself personally, I like when teams switch it up, especially if they had the exact same jersey for like 10 years. I like when they, do something a little bit different. It's a little bit strange that they went back to those jerseys for one season and they're going to be switching it up again next season. That's a little bit strange, but I guess it would be slightly difficult to come off the Centennial season into the Fanatics taking over as their first year as the jersey manufacturers and have a brand new home jersey. I think maybe it would be a little bit too hard, so I can sort of understand it a bit there. It's probably just going to end up looking a little bit strange when you take a look at their jersey history in like 15 years or so. I would say I'm positive on them switching things up though. I'm not quite too sure if I would have chosen this jersey particularly for them to use as their new home jersey. Not saying it's a bad looking jersey. Actually, like I said, it's a nice looking jersey. It makes sense that they want to go back to it because it's classic Bruins. They haven't worn it in like 30 years or something like that. And also, it's kind of the look that a lot of people think of when, like, even non-hockey fans, when they think of the Boston Bruins, they kind of think of this look. A lot of that has to do with Happy Gilmore, and he is getting a Happy Gilmore 2. I think it's, sometime in the summer this year. So I'm not sure if that was coincidence or if they, intentionally planned that. It's kind of funny, but I totally understand them wanting to go back to this look, even though it's not exactly the direction that I would have chosen. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the away concept. So we haven't seen anything for the away jersey as of right now. There's no leaks for the away jersey as of right now, but this is what Chris did for the away jersey. It's basically just based on that, 70s, 80s, early 90s look for the Boston Bruins, which is, like I said, pretty much what these jerseys are based off of. And once again, it's a nice looking jersey, definitely not bad. Still don't like the one shoulder patch, but whatever, it is what it is. Let's go back to the actual leak pictures so we don't get too bogged down in the concepts there. But yeah, looking at these jerseys, yeah, like I said, they are quite nice looking jerseys. I don't want to give off the impression that I don't like this and I'm not happy with this move for the Boston Bruins, because I am. Like I said, it's just maybe not quite the direction that I would go in, but still overall, I am happy with it. I do think that this is probably the right move for the Boston Bruins, especially in a time of kind of uncertainty with the team. There's a lot of pieces that have been moved out during this season here, and they're not doing very well. So it definitely kind of seems like it's a new era for the Boston Bruins, and that's usually a very good time for them to introduce a new jersey. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Let me know what you guys think, though, in the comments down below, of course, because that is just my opinion. I would love to know what you guys think about it in the comments down below. And if you guys like this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, follow me on all my social medias, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.